this evening, sort of at the tail end of meandering around the esoteric tradition, we've chosen to devote to the contribution of Hoeller with Madame Blavatsky. Now, in that respect, let me warn you that this is going to be a treatment of the message of H.P. Blavatsky that you don't usually come across. And so, oh yes, I see a very happy customer over there. And so, as such, maybe it requires the thesis, the coming to a point will require some explaining. And I will do that explaining to a certain extent now. And that is being a sort of personal in the sense that when I came to this country in the 1952-53 and to this lodge and to this building, you know, I would say the consensus, and we had about 100 members who for the most part attended every meeting. I don't know how they stood it, because I don't know how I stood it. But it was a task, shall we say. Nevertheless, I think the progression of my own orientation as time went on and my interaction with various people was somewhat significant in that regard. Because at that time in a theosophical lodge, we had some splendid speakers, we had some splendid musicians. It was really a great place. I hope that you will say, well, it's not such a bad place now, but it certainly was at that time. So, you know, all of these people have, you might say, come here and were here and doing what they were doing, primarily with the objective in mind that they would learn a philosophy of life, a conception of reality, what Max Heindel had called in his famous book, what did he call it? The Rosicrucian cosmo-conception. I thought only a German mind could design such a wonderful title. Cosmo-conception, you know what? Because the German equivalent, at least in my mind, would be Weltanschauung. Yeah. So in any event, we are not here to extol Heindel at this time, but to refer that, let's say, an outlook was present of people searching for and looking for a philosophy of life which would be inspiring and maybe, I don't think that term was yet used very much, transforming, but at least motivating them to certain higher objectives. And therefore we were all very interested, although you might guess I was 26 years old or something like that, and my principal objective was to always argue with the speaker or other people who were willing to argue. So I gained the reputation of an argumentative fellow. Although a few people recognized that behind the argumentation there was somebody, and some of them are still around. In any event, sort of the overall view was that we had a philosophy of life here, which rested on certain foundations and certain great pillars, like the pillars at the Temple of Solomon, which I always like to refer to, and that these would be primarily composed of certain pillars, certain cornerstones, like karma, reincarnation, masters, and the need for kindness and humanitarianism to humanity on the basis of the objective of the Theosophical Society, of all the possible unifying form of all people without regard to sex, nationality, religion, or any other orientation. Okay, those were all right. But let us say fairly soon, of course, although I had been already minimally involved, because while I was still in Hungary and subsequently in Austria, I already had contact with the Theosophical Society. I was reading theosophical books, which wasn't that easy. I mean, I read German without any difficulty, but where the difficulty existed was that the overwhelming majority of the theosophical books were destroyed by the Nazis. You know, that great cultural influence known as National Socialism of Adolf Hitler. So it was really a job to find theosophical books. I was still getting catalogs and books from Austrian bookstores when I was here, because I had done business with them, and so they would send the information to my new address. In any event, it was that in itself wasn't that easy. Now, in that connection, the reason I brought this up was that I am inclined toward, and have been inclined toward for quite a few years, a view of the theosophical philosophy which in certain respects is different from the way others view it, and let's say other way in which it has been viewed throughout all the time since 1875. And the reason, it is one of the reasons for that I'm going to try to bring to your attention this evening. And if by some chance the big dark angel should come and take me sooner than I hope, then you may wish to keep that in mind and to call it to the attention of people you know that this is what he really felt. Not that the other people have to feel that way, but that is the way that I felt. Now, all right. And now I'll give you the reasons why I feel the way I feel. All the time that I was here in Besant Lodge, I was, I lectured throughout the world. I was in Australia, I was in New Zealand, I was in Sweden and Norway and heaven knows where else. But everywhere I encountered this dichotomy between the evident desire of people to find something really meaningful in their lives for themselves, to find certain avenues not only toward a different belief, but toward an essential change, an essential transformation within themselves. And inasmuch as I was also working on C.G. Jung's work at the time, I combined that with the Jungian, let's say, program of the transformation in the unification of the human. Because as I mentioned, I think last week, one of his great early insights was not what you think, that people are neurotic, that people are nuts, and that people are sex crazed, as Sigmund Freud would state, but something else, that they are not whole, they are not complete, they are unfinished. As Gerald Hurd, the British philosopher, put it in one of his books, man, the unfinished animal. Now, you may not want to be an animal, although I would be inclined to turn into some animals whom I like the one over there, but let's say there are certain important elements there. And so I always suspected that behind this incredible panorama of cosmology, of occult history, of strange and mysterious tales of the remote past, there was something of a very important, a personally very significant nature that had to be discovered. And in this place, with our 100 members or so, I remember only one man who agreed with me. But you know what, that was enough for me, because he was a very smart man, Englishman of course, a very smart man by the name of Will Ross, God rest his soul, who always said that, you know, this is all well and good, the karma and reincarnation and masters and the occult history and Atlantis and Lemuria and all that sort of thing. But you know, there is something else that we are still trying to find. And I asked him, Will, what is it? Well, he says the only way he could express it at that time, that it was the mysticism within theosophy. And I don't think we need to go to the dictionary definitions of mysticism, but let us say what it ultimately amounts to is what I found it to be, was the discovery of certain elements, certain insights, and possibly certain processes within this vast cosmo-conceptual framework which can bring personal, individual, transcendental insight similar to the mystics of every age, similar to the great saints of East and West and so forth, to the individual. And I had the feeling that so much of what I was studying and what others were studying, all the volumes of the Secret Doctrine, which is a fabulous book. I mean, don't you think that I would ever put it down in some fashion, because I think it's I mean, all the nights that I spent sitting up in bed reading the Secret Doctrine, understanding it was something else, but reading it was certainly very entertaining and very nice. But that, let us say, there is some hidden message here, some royal secret that doesn't quite come through in all the voluminous writings of this darling old Russian lady, and that needs to be discovered. And that most of us who call ourselves theosophists have not discovered, although we are longing for it with maybe an ever more powerful longing. So that's, I think, a good introduction. And I might say that wherever I was courageous enough, although perhaps I wasn't really liking that, but strong enough to put forth in company and to my fellow theosophists this somewhat still vague but very powerful longing. There was a few whose eyes lit up. Oh yeah, he's looking for the right thing, sort of that sort of thing. And some like Geoffrey Hodgson and my dear admired friend Rukmini Devi seem to have discerned right away. Rukmini Devi, she was one of the first theosophical lecturers I saw in San Francisco. And as soon as she saw me, she came over to me and she said, I'm so glad you are here because you know something and you will know more. But I said, well, thank you, madam. She wanted me to go to India at that time to the institute, but I wouldn't do it. In any event, that's another issue again. But let us say I was beginning to find here and there a few people who agreed with me that there was something here, there was something still missing, and that it would be a great thing to discover or rediscover that something. Now, as time went on, I kept my Hungarian eagle eye. The Hungarians have a mystical eagle. It's called the turul bird. It's a purely mythological bird. And if you go down to MacArthur Park, when you enter the park from this direction, you will see a statue maybe about this big of the bird. And it's the monument to the 1956 Hungarian uprising against the Soviet Russians. Beautiful big eagle, but that is not just any kind of eagle. That is the eagle that comes from the other world, and that's a pretty universal image. In any event, so there we were, and trying to look at the bottom of this particular conundrum. So now, meanwhile, I have also encountered Carl Jung, not personally, although I saw him from about maybe as far away as from here, the front door, when I went to Zurich, and the people in the car were pointing, oh, das ist doch der Dr. Jung, das ist doch der Dr. Jung. He was already fairly aged and walking kind of slowly, surrounded by a harem of women. Oh yeah, Dr. Jung, still there, in German, in French, in Italian, not in Hungarian. But I was unable to get out and make that particular contact, and it came to me it's not really necessary. You know what he's standing for. You are studying his books, you are commenting on his books. That's all that important. Do you want to smell his pipe tobacco? You can get your own. In those days, I still smoked more pipes. But in any event, so it came to me that somewhere among these various contacts, perhaps this mysterious secret was there. Now, as time goes on, and as I held on, and there were various prominent theosophists, including Joy Mills, Jeffrey Hodgson, that's who told me that the one thing that I had in my nature is a perseverance. And since I haven't found yet what I was looking for, I'm going to be looking for it. I'm going to be looking for it. I'm going to be looking for it. And, if you look long enough, you'll find. That's about the way it is. So what did I find and how? Well, it took a long time. For one thing, within the last few years, or at least within the last 10 years, I would have to look up the data, it's not that important, there were discovered two amazing, previously unpublished and therefore uncommented on books by H.P. Blavatsky, and they both got, fortunately, in the hand of a very, very brilliant and very amusing man, whom, if I live long enough, will bring out here, and that is Michael Gomes, our primary historian, and especially of Blavatsky, because since he was a young man, Michael came from somewhere on the tip of South America. There are some islands, and they are apparently very good for the growing of grapes. And his family is a Portuguese family, set up there quite a long time ago, and they had a big vineyard. And so then eventually he had enough of the local wine, and then he came up here to Canada and to New York, and the first thing he found, it just indicates to you, because you're going to meet that man before too long, it just indicates to you what kind of a direction this man had since he was very young. He found the apartment house in New York City, which was where the apartment of H.P. Blavatsky and H.S. Alcott was, and where the Theosophical Society was founded. And he said, and then he got an apartment in the same building. He said he was never as happy before or after in his life than when he was there. Anyway, somebody with a great deal of interest in this particular field. Now, interestingly enough, this man with the practically lifetime burning interest concerning the mission, the content of the message of H.P. Blavatsky had discovered, more than 100 years after their original publication, 2 books. And the people who attend our little book club will know what I'm talking about. These are all previously unpublished works of H.P. Blavatsky, and one of them is a pretty big, thick hardcover book, which are H.P. Blavatsky's own commentaries on her own book, The Secret Doctrine. And my friend Michael got hold of it. In fact, Roberto and I met him down there somewhere near USC, because I think it was the United Lodge of Theosophists, somebody there that got him the book. He came clutching this book, and I tell you, Moses couldn't have been more radiant carrying the book of Exodus. There he was. That just was. So when Madame Blavatsky was finished with The Secret Doctrine and already had a serious encounter with death, because she had all kinds of ailments, the poor old lady, she went to England, and she lived in several houses, one of them Annie Besant's house, and the other one Mabel Collins. in any event, there she said, well, all right, it's time now to understand what I was trying to say to you in the secret doctrine. And therefore, she organized a kind of private class. And there were some assiduous children of Albion there who wrote shorthand and so forth. They wrote it all down. So it's all full of questions and answers, and there is a lot of them. And when you look among them, you can see that she's trying to come out with something. She's trying to say something. She's trying to bring something out in the public, but wasn't entirely certain how to do it. But it's a great book. Now then, when that was done, she was always unhappy with her own writings, and then I know that feeling. I like to walk around like a Hungarian cock of the walk with the books that I have written, but you know, it's always that way. However, now she said she has to write something more profound, more capable of bringing forth that essential teaching that she tried to bring forth in the secret doctrine and managed to do to a certain extent, but not entirely, and that she wanted to bring that forth. She knew that her days were numbered, the poor old lady. So now she wrote not the secret doctrine commentaries, but the esoteric teachings, a commentary on the esoteric, because by then she was working on, although not quite completed, a group that would be more esoteric than the esoteric group. So to something, you know, a bunch of people whom she could really trust and who at least had the potential in her eyes to understand certain deeper things. And that in turn fell into the hand of the great Blavatsky admirer, our friend Michael Gomes, who is a charming man, absolutely great. In any event, one way or the other, with whatever means, he persuaded the then international president, Rada Bernier, who was a very nice lady. She was always very nice to me, and she was from a theosophical family. Her father, her mother, all kinds of other people were all big theosophists, but I guess Michael prevailed on her, and she made available to him something that was in the archives of the Theosophical Society in Adyar for decades and decades and decades, and nobody did anything with it. She said, well, maybe you can do something with this. And so we have that book also we have used, because again it's just one volume of lessons that she prepared for these folk. And now, when that book fell into my hand, I was talking to Michael on the telephone, and I said, Michael, you sent this to the right guy, because I have always felt that Blavatsky, in addition to everything else, was a magician, and that she is trying to explain here the deepest, the most profound, the most transcendental and transformative aspect of the magical philosophy as it came down, as well as various others. So this is a very powerful attempt to convey something that outwardly has been present already in various books, but that was never really explained, that was never really understood. So I said, we really got to watch this book. And I pretty well discovered why. And How do I discover why? I don't think I can tell you. But let me summarize it this way, that there is a terribly important activity, a terribly important program of action that the real theosophist, that the real admirer of the secret doctrine and things like that should know and should practice. And that this activity, or whatever we wish to call it, goes back a long ways. And so the first chapters of her book on the esoteric teachings is on who? On Simon Magus, the Gnostic magician. They said, aha, yes, here we are, you know. And from the little that there is there, because this, of course, was something she was going to keep up, I deduced that she said that from the beginning of the various workings of the esoteric tradition, there always was a particular direction, the objective of which was the magical transformation of the human being. Something that perhaps Jung called the individuation process. In any event, so Madame Blavatsky puts in the very first or second chapter of the book on the esoteric tradition, she puts the figure and some references to the teaching of Simon Magus. That was definitely the impression that it created. Now, fortunately, the search and the finding do not end with that, because here once again, when we were studying that book, we were stopped by something. What was that? H.P. Blavatsky's death, who just a few months short of being 60 years old, died in London, and who could not complete what she wanted. And in fact, you find in some of the notes of G.R.S. Mead, the great scholar who was her secretary and others, that she just about conferred to others, well, I did what I could, I still have to do something very important, but I can't. And then she died, which often happens. But let us say, now comes the rest of the work to find out what this was and how this may be continued. And I'll sound a warning, and you can pass the warning on to anyone you want to, because it's not a secret, that I do have my trepidations, that a large number, perhaps the overwhelming majority of the membership of the society will not be really interested in these matters, but will still be only interested in karma, reincarnation, occult phenomena, Atlantis, Lemuria, and whatever other monkey business there may be, because you know a lemur is a monkey. They are a long-tailed monkey, and they live throughout certain islands of the South Seas, sort of around Indonesia also, and so Lemuria is named after all the islands where they found lemurs. Now, why I consider this so important, I don't know, but let us say, here is, of course, the issue. There is something important. There is a magic stone of the wisdom. There is something extremely, an insight that is of tremendous importance, that is hidden away in the secret doctrine, that begins to scintillate and shine a little bit in these books that I mentioned to you now, and that she had the definite intention, and she said so several times, she had the intention of bringing this forth. But death is a severe taskmaster, and the wisest and the nicest and the most promising people sometimes fall victims to it. And that's what happened with her just before her 60th birthday. Now, we need to, all right, so is this far as we have gotten? Fortunately not. Because when you catch a glimpse of the Grail, or anything of that sort, of the great secret magical object, then when you are anywhere where it is, or where a relative of it is, you can smell it, you can sense it, you can feel it. You know that you are in the presence of the sacred. You know that you are in the presence of ineffable greatness, and you know that if at all possible, since you have discovered it, it is your task to now search further and discover it in even greater depth and even greater meaning to you. And now this is happening now, and of course, being on this particular track, I obviously keep my eyes open for it. So the latest, at least that I have come across, is quite openly available in Quest magazine, in the last issue of Quest magazine, and it is called the Blavatsky Letters. Blavatsky there, in a series of private letters, and we knew that she was a big letter writer, but these particular ones again, where were they all this time? They were written more than 100 years ago. Where have they been hiding? We'll never know. But in any event, these letters, in turn, have, and I only read them a couple of weeks ago because that's when they came out, they really put me on a track, which I think is the, at least for this particular moment, the final proof of what we have been looking for. Now, I'm talking very big talk here, but don't hold it against me. Because what we have here are letters, particularly to two people, to her great grandfather and to another relative who was a great, very important statesman in the last years of the Tsarist Russia, and in each one of them she mentions it. Now, I have heard many, many years ago that Blavatsky had a relative that she had on, I think it was mentioned as an uncle at that time, who had, well, of course, I mean, her great-grandfather was a prince of the Russian Empire, and with all the estates and everything that subsequently came to Uncle Joe Stalin. In any event, he had assembled, in the course of his long life, a very, very large and very interesting library, the majority of which was, you guessed the idea, occult. And among the occult, even in that early little sentence that I came across, it said that it was not only occult but was alchemical, and that these alchemical writings were really the original seed of H.P. Blavatsky's occult work. Now, in the present issue of Quest magazine, you have two that's in 3 letters, but 2 lengthy letters. And one of them is a letter to her great-grandfather. Now what we have here, now I could regale you with the genealogies of H.P. Blavatsky's family, because I like that sort of thing, and because I come from a family of people who are very interested in the genealogies of our own family, and therefore also other people's family. But I don't want to bore you with that. But what it reveals is that while she mentions the age, when she was about 15 years old. Now that's pretty young for a young girl in Tsarist Russia. But on the other hand, she was a very unusual person even when she was 15 years old. So when she was about 15 years old, she gained access to great-grandfather's library. Now, the real reason this is because his son, who was also a Prince Dolgoruki, his son married one of the great literary female geniuses of the time in Russia, who became Blavatsky's mother. She was referred to as the what's the name of the doggone French woman who was Chopin's girlfriend and all that. She was the most famous female novelist for about 100 years. So they used her as an analog for Blavatsky's mama, who was also, she turned out romantic novels like crazy, and that's why she didn't even spend much time back home with her child, who was Blavatsky, because she was always in St. Petersburg with the literary set. Anyway, to come to it, so her mother, Madame Blavatsky's mother, who was a Princess Dolgoruki, no, she was Princess Dolgoruki's grandchild, so it's already one there. By the way, again, I don't want to slip over into the study of Russian nobility, which I like, but I will still say that let's say the search for meaning and for wisdom and for miracles among the Russian high nobility was very, very great, right up to the end. Even the now sainted and glorified Tsar Nicholas and his wife Alexandra were great students of the occult and great friends and associates of at least 2 very important occult people of their age. And one of these, the earlier one, was the Master Philippe of Lyon, the magical, mystical master of the French occult school, and a close friend of Papus, the great occultist of France, and who actually was invited several times to come to St. Petersburg and to help the Tsar's family, primarily with the painful and debilitating illness of the Tsarevich, or the Tsar's son. And then subsequently, when the French gentleman died, Master Philippe died in about 1909, so even before World War I. So then the Tsar's family still wanted a miracle worker, and then came the old, long-bearded weirdo, the prehistoric hippie, Gregory Yefimovich Rasputin, who was the last one, and who also warned the Tsar and the family about various things that are likely to happen, but I doubted that they paid too much attention to him. And before them already their great uncle, Tsar Alexander I, who was known the world over as the Rosicrucian Tsar, and who got his messages from the other world through a female teacher, the Baroness Krudener, who told him what to do and how to defeat Napoleon, which he did. A fabulous guy. They called him when I talk about Alexander I, I go into strange states myself. They called him the red-haired giant. The Romanovs quite frequently had red hair, not always. I don't think Tsar Nicholas had red hair, but in any event, Tsar Alexander did. And here, by way of the Baroness Krudener, he got all kinds of sort of spirit messages in which he was given directions what to do to beat Napoleon and how to somehow continue the Russian Empire thereafter without destruction, because some great danger always hovered over the Romanovs, and they found various ways in finding out about it. In any event, in this particular case, we have let's say, the discovery of a way of establishing as close a contact with the mysterious, the occult, the other world, and to how to combine this to a considerable extent with the Russian Orthodox teachings. Because everybody knows about Rasputin, everybody knows that these people were doing strange stuff in the palace, and yet upon the recent liberation of Russia from the Soviet yoke, the Tsar, the Tsaritsa, people often make a mistake. The wife of, see, here I'm instructing you about things that are going to be of absolutely no importance to you. The Tsar's wife, who is the Tsaritsa. In most books they say Tsarina, but that's a wrong expression. Now there were Tsarinas. Catherine the Great was a Tsarina because she became a Tsar, like a female Tsar in her own right. That's different. And also the Tsarina Elizabeth before her, but not in this particular case. But the Tsar, his wife, his little ailing son, and all of his daughters were slaughtered by the Soviets in Siberia. And now, with the country having attained freedom, one of the first things that the Russian Orthodox did, they declared Nicholas and Alexandra and all the children martyrs, saints. God bless them for their insight. God bless them for their insight. As you can see, I have some curious connection with these people. But you can have connections with worse people, can't you? So in any event, there was there was an occult light shining over the various palaces of the Tsars in the number of subsequent decades. And they knew, King Tsar Nicholas, we have proof of it, written proof of it, they knew about Madame Blavatsky. Oh, she was our great seeress, the miracle worker. He called her a thaumaturg, which she was, and so forth. So, you know, these people knew what they were up to. But now, Madame Blavatsky, the 15-year-old Helena, let's see, you better help me, his father's name, Han. I am even related by marriage to the Hans. But and then there's a German name for rooster, for Han. And her father, who was a colonel, regimental commander of a Cossack regiment, was von Han. These are all Baltic German noble families who under Peter the Great and around came into Russia. Now, in any event, what I discovered, and I think that if I read, you can read the Quest magazine yourself, you can read other collections of her, but if I give you that much of a little digest of it, that may be helpful to you. What was it that Madame Blavatsky found in great-grandfather, the prince's library? Well, she found alchemy, but she found a certain angle to the understanding of alchemy that probably the hundreds and hundreds of alchemists either never quite discovered or just never would disclose. And what was that? One can see it in one of these letters, maybe the one to Prince Dondukov-Korsakov, but maybe in the one to her great-grandfather, that alchemy has all kinds of phases of transformation, and that some of them run parallel with each other and mean the same thing, but are nevertheless a different symbolism. Well, one of the symbolisms of classical alchemy has to do with pretty much the same stages of transformation that the other alchemists do, but when the alchemical process goes through a number of other transformational phases, it arrives at the point where there are only two alchemical points, and one of these is characterized by the white color, and the other one is characterized by the red color. And it even gets a little bit more complete. But what it ultimately amounts to is, I could go on trying to unravel this to you, and you would all fall asleep, which we are all looking forward to a little while from now. But let us see what the 15-year-old girl discovered was that ultimately all creation, all the universe, boils down to a duality. Sometimes appears as a black and a white in alchemy, sometimes as the red and the white, but they are the two opposites, and they are masculine and feminine. And in turn, that is the last stage in most alchemical works before the reunion, the final reunion, which is often represented as the divine androgyne and so forth. So what does all that indicate? It indicates is that the human has within himself or herself the ability to reunite the dancing and fighting opposites within his own nature, and when these are united, then the philosopher's stone is there, and the divine androgyne is born. And she wrote to her great-grandfather. You remember great-grandfather? I found that when I was 15 years old. And I'm still going after that. And basically she tells him, and also to her cousin, Prince Dondukov-Korsakov, that, you know, friends, that is all it is about. It's not how many spiritists these mediums can conjure, and this, that, and the other thing, and the soothsayers. What this is about, that the human can become so much more than it is. The human can develop. The human can, I don't think she used the term evolve, because she anticipated that I don't like evolution. So she said, no, I'm not going to say that. But in any event, that there is such a possibility. And that magic, alchemy, most of classical occultism is organized in such a way that if you go through certain processes, if you fulfill certain requirements, then you end up there, and you end up the place where you yourself will be united. And all the 100 years later, look, here is the little pipe-smoking Swiss doctor who says the same, that we have to become one. We are divided. That's how we were made, but we don't have to stay that. We can help to reunite ourselves, and when we reunite ourselves, then we come to the end of the life, end of the line of development. Then we have fulfilled what we have really come in this world to do, to become one. We come from the one, and we become the one, and we shall be the one. Now, here, of course, unfortunately, you are not going to find all of this in these words in Quest magazine, but you will find it here. and so I think that obviously more has to be found, but I think we are richer in our discovery of what Blavatsky really came here to do today than we were a few days ago, before I read the Blavatsky letters. Because now we have indications of a process, don't call it evolution, of a technique, of an alchemy that is trying to happen to us. And if we learn how to assist it, if we learn how to do it, then we will be the living philosopher's stone that the alchemists were promising and spoke about. And now this is very dangerous. If this gets out to Adyar or to Wheaton, I don't know, maybe the Theosophical Inquisition will go after me. There is really no such thing. But to think that this is what we should start. This is what it is all about. So why the gigantic secret doctrine? Why Isis unveiled? Why the key to theosophy and all of these things? Why? Because that is the background. That is the plan for the school that we have to go to, where we are going to learn how to become one, how to become the living philosopher's stone, as one of the medieval philosophers said. But he said, that is what it is all about. not the reincarnation. Maybe there is, I have no great interest in it, probably because I didn't have very interesting past life. Then they gave me a real interesting one this time. So thank you very much, thank you very much. But let us say, with all of those, that something has to happen inside the human. And the yogis have been striving for it for forever, and the Tibetan Buddhists and all kinds of mystics, and Saint Teresa and Saint Catherine and so forth, because somehow they were given the technique, they were given the alchemy, how to go in that direction. And I can promise you this much, although I shouldn't, that if you really become one-pointedly desirous of this thing, of this mystery, if you go to bed with it, you rise with it in the morning, you go out with it the door, you come back with it the door, if you do it long enough, I guarantee you that it will happen. Why? Because it has happened to many before, because it happened to some of us, at least to a certain extent, and as such, we have the promise of living experience, that we can be more, that we can be true, that we can unite within ourselves the opposites and become that living philosopher's stone that is the source of all magic, it's the source of all mystery, and it is the ongoing mystery of transformation. So, why did Madame Blavatsky come here? Why did she end up founding the Theosophical Society? Why did she go to India and there contact all various other wise men and wise women and so forth? Why? Because she knew the ultimate secret, that if we discover the philosopher's stone inside of ourselves, and if we give it enough nourishment, then we will have fulfilled the destiny not only of you as a person, but through you as a person, you fulfill the destiny of all humanity, because that is what we are here for. We are here to become one and to give up the broken up fragmentation of our alchemical process. And when we do, well, I can't promise you that then everything will be over, but at least some of this misery that we are in will be over. It will. But I would be remiss if I didn't throw in something which probably already is in the heads of some of you, or should be, and that is, of course, that added to this insight, that something really important can happen here if you do it right. Added to this insight came another element that has haunted the theosophists ever since, and since then has been haunting the so-called New Age. Somebody called Madame Blavatsky the grandmother of the New Age. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, Granny, where are you? Over there. So, in any event, this is not, and of course the so-called New Age has inherited it also. And I've been fighting it for decade after decade after decade. And I'm finally at the point where I don't feel like fighting it so much, because I haven't really discovered a secret. I haven't discovered what it is all about. But I think I have discovered enough of it to indicate and intimate what it is. And that is the mystery of the masters of wisdom. because while I was opposed to the concept for many years, because I felt that it put the goal before the achievement. But let us say, only just recently, and only in part as the result of these Blavatsky letters, I have come to the conclusion that there is something there. But as usual, the something is not what you learned. The something is not quite what is in the books. And so don't go too wild. Oh, I cooked a scrambled eggs for the master Kutsumi last night. Something like that. It has been materialized. It has been made a kind of a cheap Hollywood movie. Not only by the theosophists, who generally were more restrained, but all kinds of other people. And therefore, we have to, there too, we have a job. We have to find out what it really is. You know, where I found this I probably told you before, where I found I would say the closest approximation to what I really think the mystery of the masters is. In Jung's autobiographical book, edited by Aniela Jaffe. What's the name of the book? Come on. Anyway, no. But that's Blavatsky's.
The Red Book?
Not the Red Book is much later. But this was published still before his death. What's the matter? It was an extremely popular book in the 60s. Anyway,
Memories, dreams,
reflections. That's it. You will get the Grand Cross of the Order of the Hungarian Gnostics. You got it, yes. Memories, Dreams and Reflections of C.G. Jung by Aniela Jaffe, because Jung didn't write his name to that one. But there is a very clear statement, a small one, which then is elaborated in the Red Book. And that statement is about a mysterious being, a mysterious name, whose name in the book is Philemon. And Jung writes it in at a certain point in his own Alchemy. That's why he wrote, look at this, the psychologist, he read 5 books about alchemy. I mean, what is this? Why? Because that is the pattern. The pattern is one not only of becoming good, of not having sex, not eating meat, not drinking alcohol and things like that. Right now, you know what? You will be and be nice to people. So you will be a person who was, when he dies, was nice to people, had very little sex, and generally very little fun, having done all those things. But that's not it. It's something else. Once once this inner man, this inner being, begins to grow to a certain point, then there appear sometimes more than one, but certainly one, mysterious teachers. The spiritualists already have discovered this, and some of the spirit teachers in the seances and so forth, I would say, maybe belong somewhat in this category. But what it really comes down to is that now there come some helpers. If you think that we are so wonderful, that we don't need any help, well, then maybe you're just barking up the wrong tree of life, as one should put it Kabbalistically, because we certainly are not. But on the other hand, we can't just entirely rely on help. I was taught this a long time ago in the monastery that about the saints. He said, the saints will help you, but you have to do the work yourself. Oh yes, oh my gosh, why do you have to tell me that, you know? But it's somewhat like that when, I mean, it's an old Hindu saying, when when the pupil is ready, the master reads. And you know, why should they have, I never liked the expression masters. You know why? Because as a teacher of mine said, masters need slaves. And this is not about that. That's just a grandiloquent statement by a grandiloquent guy, you know. But on the other hand, help. We all need help. And we have available to us one or more than one helper. And if we are open to them, if we keep them as a sacred icon in our consciousness and continue to ask for help, there is absolutely no doubt but that we will be rewarded in the most wonderful, in the most enduring, in the most transcendental way. Because these things this is not new, obviously not. What Madame Blavatsky was doing was not new. But she said, come on, I'll bring you a philosophy which maybe it is not. That was 19th century, of course. Society was founded in 1875. I'll bring you a picture, a scheme, a plan. And in that plan, you will find a helper as well as you will find the greater glory itself. The one that she quoted quite often, St. Paul the Apostle, saying that the Christ in us, the hope of glory, the God in us, the Buddha in us, the Buddha nature, all of these indicating something great, something wonderful, something utterly satisfying and redeeming is on its way to us. And if we are on our way toward it, then it will do what it does. It will redeem us, it will help us, it will glorify us, and it will bring our often difficult and often sorrowful and sad lives to a glorious and happy and always wonderful conclusion. May that time come, and may it come soon. God bless the messengers like Blavatsky and others who have made us aware of that, and now we are discovering what they have really brought us, and we will discover more. So thank you very much.